Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeannie Krull from ATAP AT3, and I'd like to welcome you all to the second session of the ATAP AT3 Aging Peer Action Learning Group. This session is going to be mainly conducted in interactive breakout rooms, which Andrea Ruth will be describing in a minute. But before we do anything, I'd really like to provide more information on assistive technology so we are all on the same page. And so I'm going to get my screen ready here and share. Can you all see? We all good?
Yep, we can see Jeannie.
Thanks. Thanks, Ryan. All right. Oh, we got some thumbs up. Yay. Well, not many, I don't know how many of you know, but the term assistive technology has been around for nearly 40 years. And believe it or not, the term and everything about that has evolved along with all of the technology that has enveloped us over the last 40 years. Um, Assistive technology is really an ecosystem that supports functional capability across a lifespan. Yet there's many misunderstandings that persist about what assistive technology is. And really, AT assistive technology serves anyone navigating changes in vision and hearing, memory, mobility, fatigue, speech, or behavioral health, and more, regardless of age and whether they identify as disabled. The 21st Century AT Act, which was just reauthorized in 2022, it anchors assistive technology in lifespan access and cross-disability reach, defining both technology and its beneficial population in functional terms. Now, this is really long, but I think it's really worthwhile to understand. This is what's in the law. And the term assistive technology means technology designed to be utilized in an assistive technology device or assistive technology service. And the device means any item, anything, piece of equipment, product, system, whether acquired commercially, modified, or customized, and that acquired commercially can mean mainstream technologies that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. And that term, individuals with disabilities, is very broad, and we will go into that in a second. Now, the second piece is actually much longer than this, but I didn't want to put it on three different slides. So we did a condensed version, but we will link you to the Assistive Technology. And actually, the Assistive Technology Act was linked on the previous slide, and all these slides will be in our assistive technology community forum. And I bet Ryan will put that link in the chat of where that's at, right? So you can all sign up and be a part of that. It's really any service that directly assists an individual with a disability and selecting and figuring out what type of assistive technology device is the best, um, helping them get it, helping them customize it so it works for them, coordinating it with the therapist and the education plans, instruction for the individual and their support network, including caregivers, training for professionals, employers, and critically, expanding the availability of access to technology, including electronic and information technology to individuals with disabilities. So AT is defined by what it does versus what it does in improving, maintaining, or increasing functional capabilities of the person versus what the device is, which opens it up to, again, any item. Now, I know this was like a lot of stuff, and guess what? There's a second slide, but it doesn't even begin to touch on how many things out there are assistive technology. And the legal definition of assistive technology is inherently broad enough to include all of this and more, including stuff that hasn't even been invented yet. And so this is our assistive technology umbrella, and it includes speech communication, vision, stuff for vision and hearing, home modifications, environmental controls, communication technology, um, learning, cognitive, developmental behavioral health technology, daily living technology, vehicle mods and transportation tech, recreation, sports and leisure, mobility, seating and positioning, computers and related and more. And some things I wanted to point out. So your fall detection systems, smart home devices, remote monitoring, wearables, mainstream technology like phones and computers and laptops, all of that stuff is all considered assistive technology. And again, these slides will be in your in the community forum under the Aging Pal. And who is it for? Now, obviously, people with disabilities, but it also includes older adults and those aging into disability because it covers all ages and underrepresented population that uses those terms right in the law. And it's also to increase access to and acquisition of assistive technology, addressing the needs of aging individuals and their aging caregivers in the community. And it requires state ATAC programs to collaborate with state agencies under the Older American Act. Believe it or not, it says that. And in the Older American Act, it also says ATAC programs and vice versa. It also is for temporary, intermittent, progressive conditions and people who do not yet identify as disabled, like my dad with Parkinson's. Believe it or not, he did not consider himself disabled, and so do many, many people, especially those who are aging. And it also includes our support networks and supports our instruction for family members, guardians, advocates, professionals, employers, others who are substantially involved in major life functions of individuals with disabilities. And what can we achieve together? You know, every person on the planet will either need assistive technology for themselves or they will know someone who needs it. And the trick is to build assistive technology awareness so everyone knows about it before they need it and no one goes without. And this requires a collective effort from all of us who are already familiar with these wonderful life-changing solutions. Every state, every territory, every person. And and you can get to your local ATAC programs on our website. And again, the link is in the slide, but Ryan can maybe provide that to the group. And I think that is my last slide. And I want to pop it off to Miss Andrea.
Hi, everyone. Welcome today. I'm Andrea Ruth. I'm the moderator, facilitator for this project for the Assistive Technology Association. And I really appreciate that you're all here today because this particular session depends on you. So, excuse me, we are looking for you to participate today. We have 3 questions that we're going to cover in 3 separate breakout sessions, and we'll take about 10 minutes. You'll have a moderator in your breakout, and we're going to take 10 minutes for each question and solicit your input. We really want you to put on your thinking caps about what you know related to the needs of older adults for assistive technology in your communities and your states. That's the first question. The second question that we're going to cover is about, sorry, I have to put on my glasses, assistive technology. The second question that we're going to cover today is, what do aging services organizations and the AT Act programs need to help older adults obtain assistive technology? So some of you work on the ground in these agencies, and we're looking for you to tell us, what do you need so that you can help older adults obtain this kind of technology? And finally, the last question that we'll cover is, what are the barriers for older adults in obtaining assistive technology? What's in the way? What are some of the challenges? And again, your input into this piece is very important because as we move along through this project, we're looking to identify those services, programs that we need to work on collaboratively. Where could collaborations help us move forward so that older adults have access to assistive technology? This is an important step in identifying those needs and places where we might collaborate. So today, again, we're going to do 3 separate breakouts. We will put you into breakout rooms. You'll be there for about 10 minutes. A moderator will help you list some of those needs, some of those barriers as we go through the questions on a Padlet, which if you haven't used yet, this is new technology to me, but each moderator is going to help you with the Padlet. And then we'll come back to the main room of the webinar together after each 10-minute question brainstorming session. We'll come back and share a little bit of highlights from each breakout. And we'll have a little bit of a discussion as a larger group. And then we'll go to the next breakout. So the point of this is you'll have time together in your breakout room, then you'll have time with all the breakout rooms together for each of the 3 questions. Today, we're going to get a little tutorial on the Padlet technology from Ryan Roush. Thank you, Ryan. I'll turn it over to you in just a minute. We're going to have another one of those polling polls up for you to fill out before we go to breakout room. Ryan will introduce that. At the end of our session today, we are going to hopefully have a little bit of time for an ending discussion. And then Marty Exline is going to tell us about the next session in March that we're going to come together and be together for. So that's kind of the rundown of today's session. I wanted to point out to you, if you don't capture and don't absorb everything that's identified today, please do not worry, because we're going to put together a report that combines all the Padlets, all the breakouts for all 3 questions, and that will be available to you on the community forum so you can go back and look at the work we do together today. All right, so I think I've done my job. I should point out that each of the people you see today on your screen, Jeannie, Ryan, Marty Exline, Scout Mary from the Office of Assistive Technology in Missouri, and myself, we will be your moderators for the breakout sessions. So you'll be assigned to a session with one of us, and we'll be there to help facilitate the conversation. Okay, Ryan, you want to teach us about Padlet?
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you all for joining today. It's so great to see so many people coming together and, putting our minds together and to hopefully solve a lot of challenges and barriers for older adults getting assistive technology. And so, yeah, so quick start guide to Padlet. I'm excited to be sharing here. Padlet is essentially a virtual bulletin board where we can collaborate in real time. Think of it as a digital wall where everyone can post their thoughts, ideas, and responses in real time and at the same time. So when you enter the breakout room here in a moment, your group facilitator will enter a link to your Padlet board in the chat. So be looking for that in the chat. You'll then click on that link and it should pop up in your web browser of your liking. Now they'll see here, I have it shared here. There are 3 columns, just as Andrea discussed, with our key questions. But we'll only focus on one question at a time as directed. And so from left to right, again, we'll address AT needs for older adults. The middle column is support needed from aging services and AT Act programs. And then on that right is around barriers to AT access. So now here's how to add your thoughts. You're going to look for and click on the plus sign under the current question. You'll click on that. A pop-up will come up, and you'll then type in a brief subject in the top box. Then you can add your detailed response in the right something. And it might say something beautiful, it might say something else, but that box is where you'll then put in your comments, ideas, thoughts, and etc. And then from there, you'll click on publish, which is then in the top right corner of that pop-up box. Now, you may be prompted for a screen name if this is your first time using. You can use your real name or stay anonymous with an auto-generated name like Responsible Salamander or something of that nature. You'll click done after choosing, and then you should be able to see your post now in that column. And as more people contribute, you'll see the column start to fill up with ideas and comments. And to view all posts, you'll notice there'll be a scroll bar on the right side of each column to move up and down through the responses, and you can do that at your own liking. You also may see a scroll bar at the bottom that you can screen or move your screen to left to right between the three columns. You can also add reactions to others' posts by clicking on the smiley face. You can also comment on the post where it says add comment. You can also upload images, videos, if you feel anything is relevant by clicking on that plus sign to the left of the add comment. So the beauty of Padlet is that everyone can contribute at once, and we could see all ideas developing in real time. And at any point during your breakout sessions, if you need any help, yeah, please ask your facilitator, moderator. We're here to help and support you. And we can also input your ideas into the Padlet board. If you prefer not to use the Padlet, you can put those in the Zoom chat, and the moderators will then take those comments and put them into the Padlet for you. So that's the quick and dirty around Padlet. Again, facilitators will be in the room to help you and support you. They'll drop a link into the chat once we're in the breakout. All you do is click on it, and it will take you to the Padlet board. And so before we dive into our discussions, we do have some quick administrative item. I will now push a brief survey that should pop up on your screen. And if you don't see this pop up on your screen, please check your other windows. It might be hidden behind your Zoom screen. This survey helps ATAP AT3 with our program evaluation and reporting to our funders, and should take 2 to 3 minutes of your time. And I will pause right now to give you guys some time to complete. Yes, that is correct. Short and sweet, Amy. Just 2 questions. All right. All right, we've got the polling completed. And so thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. And just to let you know, we'll have a brief survey at the end of today's session. Again, this helps us track our technical assistant efforts and improve our services. And so with that, now I guess we'll get started with our first breakout session. Andrea or Jamie, would you like to add some insight? Or yeah, Jamie?
Yeah, I am going to set a timer for 10 minutes.
All right. Well, I'm assuming, Jamie, that everyone else can hear us.
You're back in
So
the main
we'll
webinar now.
Wonderful. So we're back in the main room. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I think we got some really good needs identified. And I know that some of the rooms were having great discussions. So let's go around the rooms and have each of the moderators maybe just highlight 3 or 4 of what your people said, keeping in mind that we are going to um, we are going to put out a report with all of these listed. So let's try to hit some highlights. And if, for instance, Jeannie names 4 or 5, then when I go to Scout, I'll ask you to name 4 or 5 different ones, okay? Not duplicates, so we can get as many out as we can. All right, so Jeannie, would you like to go first?
Sure, I hope I don't steal everybody's.
Well, just do 4 or 5.
All right. I'm sure we're going to get into devices, but I think some important things in addition to devices were education and awareness and caregiver technical support, um, remote monitoring sensors. Let's see what else we got here. Bathroom safety devices, vision, hearing technology, GPS trackers. Okay, I'll stop.
All
I can,
right. Your group made a great list.
yeah,
Thank
we've
you.
got a lot
Thank you.
more.
That's wonderful. All right. I think I'm going to go to my tablet next so that I don't have to keep in mind what you all have said while I'm trying to facilitate too. So if you don't mind, I'm going to list a few of ours. So from my group, we said managing healthcare, in other words, medication management or gathering and understanding info from health, about your health from applications, from apps. Voice activated devices to turn off and on lights, etc. Assistance with smart home devices. This one, I think, so important, the visual alarms where, doorbells or smoke detector systems can use flashing lights or bed shakers rather than just sound. Um, Transportation needs to medical appointments. I was telling my group, I hear that a lot from the older people around me that is a need. We also had communication tools like phone communication aids for hearing, communication tablets for people who are nonverbal to help them communicate their needs and their feelings. So that's some highlights from my group. Now I'm going to go to another group. Okay. So, Scout, would you like to go next with your groups, some of the highlights?
Absolutely. Yeah, we were a mostly quiet group, but busy in the Padlet. So
Mhm.
the one of the things that stands out is our defiant jackrabbit put in digital skills to use devices. So iPads were in there, other technology, but also those skills and access to the internet. um, of course there were mobility, hearing, vision, um, but some somebody threw in recreational AT, and of talking devices like you mentioned. Um, so things like that. And again, the fall alerts came up a couple of times.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if every group didn't have something about the falls. So
Mhm.
thank you. All right, let's go to Ryan next. Ryan, would you highlight a few things?
Yeah, just taking a look. Yeah, very similar to a lot of yours. I think um, durable medical equipment that is affordable is a really specific one, and I would, yeah, echo that. Being an occupational therapist myself, I've worked with a lot of clients in home health, And that is the number one thing that, yeah, would be, yeah, is a is a challenge and barrier. Um, Other things to think about, yeah, fall detection, again, echoing, yeah, scouts, but also thinking about security and privacy. I think that's a big piece as, we look at the smart home technology and ring cameras that that government can use now, so it's a pretty interesting time that we are in. So
Yeah, great ones. And I think that security and privacy issue is very much on people's minds right now. I wanted to add one more that I forgot from my room, which I think is important, and the rest of you haven't said yet, which is just this ways to maintain relationships, dealing with that isolation that we're hearing so much about, and helping people maintain relationships with their families and their friends and their communities. Marty, would you like to add some of yours to the list?
Yeah, Jeff, just what you just said is certainly a big one. Social isolation is still huge. Loneliness is a big issue. We talked about some of the same thing. We talked about somebody mentioned transportation supports as far as just things like transfer boards and assistive technology to help you get in and out of your vehicle and utilize it. Mentioned supports for digital health, and just like I think Scott was mentioned, actually accessible digital supports for digital health. We mentioned mobility. We mentioned, that issues with just people being frail and having things like arthritis and activities of being able to achieve activities of daily living. So yeah, and a lot of the same things that everybody else mentioned.
Very good. Thank you, Marty. And I saw Scout's comment in the chat that, there's this connectivity issue that's not just about connection, maintaining relationships with each other, but then there's this whole connectivity issue related to the internet and broadband, and do people have access? So very good. It sounds like we got a lot of really good comments in the needs department here. I wanted to invite the whole group, if you have something you want to highlight, or this discussion made you think of another one, you could put those in the chat. I've got a comment here. Everyone should be aware that most long-term care insurance policies do cover assistive technology. Very important to know. Thank you, Ellen, for that.
Yeah, Andrea, when you said, or one of you said medication management systems, I mean, I can't, and I think there's a lot of people on this call that can relate going into someone's home and the pill bottles. In some of those apartments, they have that long thing when you walk in, that long little counter piece that kind of separates the kitchen from the doorway. And I've been in so many homes where that's where all the pills are, and the whole thing is covered with it. And that's, then we start with, at the beginning, basically, and ask the question to see what the needs are. And so,
yeah, that's a great example. I wanted to ask also everyone if we're getting ready to go into our next breakout. So did anyone have any questions of clarity or something that perhaps this conversation made you want to ask? And if so, you could put that in the chat. We're very much trying to be interactive here today. Get your thoughts, your questions, your ideas. We have someone here from Uganda. I'm a counselor working with the National Mental Health Referral Hospital. Have passion for elder care. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Okay, Jamie, I think we are ready for our second breakout. So again, the question for this breakout room, this next 10-minute session, the question is, what do aging services organizations and the AT Act programs need? In other words, if you're working for one of those agencies, what do you need so that you can help more older adults obtain assistive technology? So we're going to look kind of within our agencies in this next round. So Jamie, you want to send us away? Very good. Here we go. Okay, well, let's hear a little bit from each room again. So, again, this question was about the needs of the aging services organizations or the AT Act programs in helping older adults obtain assistive technology. So let me start this time with Marty, since I made him go last time.
That sounds great. I mean, obviously, funding is an issue, and of course, that's one for individuals, but certainly for agencies too. Um, uh, Talked about, somebody mentioned, David mentioned legislative support um, for agencies to be able to carry out what they're trying to do. Um, Figuring out a way, an agency figuring out a way to reduce stigma. We've talked about, Jeannie, you talked about people a lot of times not wanting to be called saying they have a disability when they get older. How do you attack that? Um, and a couple of things revolved around funding, guidance on language used to get funding,
Hmm.
prepare grants, just the difficulty in providing assistance to rural areas. There's more resources in urban areas. So that's a big issue, I think, providing services in rural areas. And I think those were the biggies.
That's great. Good 4 or 5 there that you named. Thank you, Marty. So let's go to Scout next. Would you like to go next, Scout?
Sure. I just realized I'm unmuted, so that works, right?
Yes.
Of course, funding, came up early and often. Um, I know Marty's already said it, but it'll probably be top on everybody's list. And somebody had said, more staff or volunteers or trainers. Um, One that was interesting was reliable resources, and I think that is for programs as well as the people who are, receiving services, just feeling like they know what to expect. Um, there was some interesting talk about, rural areas. In fact, we have somebody from the Virgin Islands, where traveling from island to island is a challenge. But the resources that are available, people just don't know, and it's hard to get to any group or individual to just promote awareness. And then there was some talk about accessible housing and the digital divide and things. But yeah, lots of again, very busy Padlet, but interesting chat.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to your group. All right, let's go now to Ryan.
Yeah, so we had a great discussion going, and of course we got called back in, and but anyways, so some of the things that we discussed was the need and obviously funding sources to provide AT evaluation, which is a critical step in the AT process, is that evaluation piece, finding the right match. And so, yeah, having those sources of pockets of funding to do that, not only for evaluations, but also looking at device setup, with the many things that come with a smart home, and not only being able to connect to the internet, but setting up accounts and everything of that nature. So one of the other things that was discussed was kind of thinking about empowering caregivers. I love this one because yeah, caregivers are a critical piece to helping and ensuring that technology works in the home and or community. And so thinking about those caregivers, but not only caregivers, but also thinking about those supports that may be in the home, like a cleaner, house cleaner, to somebody that's going to grocery shopping, somebody that's coming and going, but also can help out with that implementation of the assistive tech. And then lastly, I'll just say is yeah, as you know, reaching outreach to older adults who are limited English speakers, which is a huge
Mm,
need. So thinking about various languages, Spanish being a big one, but also, yeah, just being trying to reach those that are not English speakers. So that
very
was the
important.
group.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, Jeannie, I'm going to you next.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, we know we talked about funding possibly in the other one for AT, but it was more the care, the people working with the individuals, knowing what those funding sources are, and having access to a list, having, updated information, and that which also goes to another person saying they wanted a resource list, a database, not just of funding sources, but web, equipment and loan libraries. And of course we have our ATAC loan libraries in every state, just so y'all know. And what else here? And price transparency. Some people were saying it's hard to find. I mean, I suppose like something you get off Amazon and things like that, it's easy to find the price. But others that are more specialized pieces of assistive technology, augmentative and alternative communication devices, I would say that's a pretty big example. There's some websites that they don't list the price, and you've kind of got to Google it and just hope it comes up somewhere. I mean, I've done that when I was like, I don't want to talk to somebody. I don't want to quote. I don't want to wait. I just want to know how much it is. I want to guess. And I totally get that. Um, Language barriers, that was a big one for others too. Training for staff and not just staff, but just like, okay, you're meeting with, you're in a AAA and you're meeting with someone. Um, uh, just knowing how to be able to describe what it is, and then maybe even having a kit of equipment so that you could show them right away what it is. And that's so important because I think there's so many people, older adults, that just say, nope, I don't want anything. And I can't even tell you how many people came to our center dragged by their older children or their wife. You can't hear, like, what do you got? And of course they don't want the technology. And the minute you put that personal listening system on that costs $150 on them, it's like, I know you don't want it, but could we just use it just so that you can understand what I'm saying? Put that on, and oh my God, you've got a friend for life. I mean, almost in 99.9% of the situations, and I've been doing this a long time, and I bet there's a person in every Zoom room that had this experience, and I definitely had that with a vet that I worked with, and then he wanted all the things, and then you're in trouble. So I'll move it up to move it back to you.
All right. Jamie, I'm going to take this 1 minute and do a couple from my room and then we'll go on to the next one. So, from my room, one of the things that we mentioned was a common understanding between agencies of the priority goals in your community. Of course, funding was an issue. And this was the agencies, but also that older adults often don't obtain assistive technology because of the cost. Clear pathways for coverage of durable medical equipment, funding for that, relationship development, very important point I think was made here. When I worked for the state, there was a lack of awareness of what assistive technology resources and supports were available and how older adults could access them. So there might be a need for more collaboration, more MOUs, more communication among the agencies in your state or local area. Adequate time. Adequate time to evaluate the needs and ongoing education, training, and support in your agency. And then skilled staff. I think this was mentioned about evaluation, but having enough skilled staff to make home visits, to perform assessments, to make recommendations. So those were some of the ones that came up in our room. Again, we're going to put all of these in the same report, so you'll be able to see all of these later. So Jamie, with that, I think we can go to the third breakout. And the question is for us is going to be, what are the barriers for older adults in attaining assistive technology? Some of those have come out again, but we're asking the question a little bit differently to see if we identify some more barriers for older adults. Okay, well, that was quick. I know that was quick, everybody. But I think as we said, we had already identified some barriers, and I think some more came up in my room at least. So I'm going to take executive privilege this time and do some of my groups first, and then I'll call on you guys. So one of the things we were just talking about at the end is how the stigma related to some assistive technology is altering, is improving. People, for some assistive technology, people are more inclined to use it because it's out there more, like the wonderful wheelchairs that are available now and the scooters and things that have sort of improved that stigma so that people are more inclined to use them. But there are still other older folks who are not as inclined to use assistive technology, and especially if they're out in public and other people are seeing them using it. So we have that stigma as a barrier, but it's altering in some ways. Knowing that resources are there in the first place is a barrier for some older people. And how can they access it without an advocate? Knowing how to access. Privacy concerns came up again as a barrier, especially with things like AI and different kinds of computer technology. Learning ability isn't what it used to be. And there's this fear of learning technology among older adults. There's also a potential physical or cognitive decline over time that can affect that being able to use it. So that can become a barrier. We talked about legal liability, that some folks are not, who would like to go into the homes and help older adults use their technology and learn it, are not allowed to go into the home, depending on where they work and what they do. Information overload. I can see this where we've got older adults and their caregivers who are just inundated with potential ads, information, social media, et cetera, about different kinds of technology, and it can become overwhelming for people. How to sort it out, right? Yes, someone put in the chat fear of theft, especially theft of your identity or your finances and scams. It really stops some people from using technology. Okay, so that's a little bit of my groups. Let me call on the rest of you. Jeannie, you want to go first this time?
Sure.
Second, actually, I got to go first.
It's all good. I just want to echo the scam piece. I remember when I first gave, it's probably 5 years ago or more, I gave, my parents are now in their late 80s. And so they were a little younger, but I gave them an Echo and Amazon Echo. And my dad thought it was amazing. He's just like, look at all the things I can do with this. I love the shopping list. And then this is a 87-year-old that still has a Mac computer and does all the things. But my mom unplugged it. She's listening. She's listening, and I'm like, Mom, you're on Facebook. It's listening no matter where you are and on your smartphone. But that didn't matter. But now, then she saw me doing it at my house. I'm putting all the stuff in the shopping list. And she's like, well, I want that. Will you buy me one of those? I'm like, Mom, you have one of those. It's, it's in the junk drawer. So I think that's a huge thing, and they're getting, I usually would present at a senior center, and I would go after the scam person, and it's hard to convince them after that, but I think it's good that they're worried, but we need to come up with better ways to help them understand it's okay, but it's also good to be worried, I think. Geography, just trying to get to them or them get to you. And whether it's in the AAA or you're in the ATAC program, how do you tell them about all this wonderful stuff? Somebody mentioned a tech mismatch. Some people they've either tried to do it on their own and got the wrong stuff, or they maybe worked with somebody who didn't have experience in assistive technology, and some guesses were made, and they got the wrong stuff. There's that. There's also, what were the other ones here? Uh, definitely connectivity. And one of my favorites is not knowing what they already have. And so many times people will come to our center. I mean, smartphone, I think probably everyone on this call, smartphones, knowing what the capability is of your smartphone that you have. So many times people came and they just like, I can't use this phone anymore. Can't see the screen, can't hear it, all that. And I'm like, haha. Well, the seeing thing, don't have the dexterity anymore to do the touch screen. Let's change that up. Did you know that we can change all these things in there? And then they're leaving our demonstration or your AAA office with that they didn't spend a dime. So, but all this new assistive technology built in, and that is like the best present ever. And then you've got some buy-in too. So I'm gonna stop there. Yeah, I like what Amy said too. Oh, you're muted, Andrea.
Muted. I am muted. Sorry. I was just talking about Amy's comment that another issue about technology is how fast it's changing. So it's hard for older adults to keep up. It's hard for all of us to keep up. Okay, let's go for another group. Scout, I'm going to go to you next, please.
All right, thank you. One of our early comments and one of my favorites is somebody wrote ageism and stigma that AT makes you old, as if age is a bad thing. I love that, but it is this, that came up a number of times, just this stigma about using equipment, about the way it makes you look, that it might be clunky. But also, I want to scroll down. Complex systems, trust concerns, emotional fatigue, and another thing to learn. I think that is really true. And then there was more talk about, you get something, but if you don't get a training, or if the person walks away and you forget. I mean, I have that with my mother all the time. I'm like, here's how you send a picture. And then a week later, she's like, well, I can't do that. It's like, because she just forgot. And it's real. It happens, to
Yes.
all of us all the time. But when it's something that you really depend upon and you don't have those people around you, if I forget something, I can Google it or I can ask my coworker. Um, some people don't have that confidence to do those things. Um, yeah, so the insecurity of learning new technology. Wouldn't it be great if we had one-stop shops for aging services?
Mm,
Yeah, I don't need help. I'm not old. Um, and then somebody wrote at the end or towards the end, we all have to learn to think outside the box. And I mean, like we say that all the time, but there are so many more pressures on service providers as well as individuals. It really does, again, require us to say, how are we going to do this?
Yes. Yes. Very good. Okay, Ryan, I'm going to go to you next, please.
All right. Yeah, we had a great discussion, and one of our barriers was lack of awareness. And I really liked kind of the example that they used was this is very older adults is very different from students. And you think about the school system and all the supports that are in place there. You've got the IEP, which is individualized education plan or program, and you've got IDEA, which is law that helps, that student is required that assistive technology be looked at. And so it's a very different space than what a school looks like. From schools, you've got students have teachers, professionals, OTs, SLPs, PTs, paras, and so on. So I think, yeah, that there's a certainly yeah, that awareness of like what is available, but also their what are their what can be had from insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, etc. So um, others were mentioned that it can get to very difficult to hard to prioritize what assistive technology gets purchased or bought or used because of just again funding sources. They may provide several solutions and options around assistive technology that could help them be more independent, and but oftentimes they're working in a very small pot of money, and so that money may be divvied up for other services and so forth, and then that they can only get one item that was suggested or recommended. So and out of those, that it might even be not the one that is priority. So um, and then there's this stigma or assumption that AT is nice to have, and we're not thinking about it as it's something that can help support independence. It can help participation, help them engage in their community and live well, and yeah, increase well-being and all the that quality of life and so on. So
Mhm.
it's kind of just considered, oh, it's nice to have. So I thought that was really a great
Mm.
one. And I'll yeah, turn it back over to you, Andrea.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you. Um, yes, help them stay out of a nursing home. There's so many related topics here, right? So let's go to Marty and hear from his group.
Yeah,
Some highlights.
a lot of the same things. Certainly the stigma, I don't need a hearing aid, don't want to wear a hearing aid. I might need one, but I don't want to wear one. Um, our group mentioned people were relying on caregivers, mentioned again limited support from family and friends. And
Mm,
then somebody mentioned caregivers not wanting to recommend some type of AT. They don't feel like they should. They don't feel like they're qualified, even though they might know of something. They're really hesitant to recommend something. And in the area of technology is always changing. It's not just part of it is the service providers. How do you support it? I mean, if it's always changing, how do you support it? And then sometimes the company doesn't support, you have a piece of assistive technology and it comes up with new models, and then the company doesn't support the one you have anymore. Um, so those kinds of issues, yeah, resistance, fear of just trying something new. And then of course, just we've mentioned before, training and making the person comfortable with using it is just a huge barrier. So those were some of the main ones.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for your group. So, I wanted to mention something that the privacy, security, identity theft concern made me think of. And I'm wondering how many of those who are with us today are um, collaborating with, partnering with law enforcement. I came from a small town in Florida. I lived there 8 years, and every week the police department posted the online scam of the week and just told us a little bit on Facebook what it was and how could you avoid it. I thought that was fabulous public service, and there may be things that we can do with law enforcement that we're not doing yet in our collaborations. Okay, so we have 5 minutes to go. I want to thank everyone for participating today. We got some great brainstorming done, and we will put that in a report and get it out on the community forum. And our intention is that it informs further collaboration among agencies to help older adults obtain access to assistive technology. And Marty, I think you have some announcements for us here at the end, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
And don't forget the poll.
Yes, and there will be a final poll.
So yeah,
Shall I
community,
launch the poll while Marty talks?
doesn't it launch when people,
No,
Lunch is at the end? No, it doesn't.
it doesn't?
not today.
I
Yeah,
think,
I
can
mean
we
that,
let Marty say a few things and then launch it,
yeah,
Jamie,
this
just
is,
so people
Yep.
can focus on one
yeah,
thing?
just
Okay.
take it a second. Yeah, so the community forum is community.at3center.net. Just so you know where that's at in reports. So our next session, session 3, will be on March 11th, again from 3 to 4:30, and it'll be called Learning from Success, Aging and AT State Partnerships. And we'll focus on several successful collaborations and partnerships. We'll look at 4 states, but we'll talk about other ones too. We'll look at North Dakota, Missouri, Connecticut, North Carolina, and we will look at a few other states too. It'll be an interactive session, so we hope everybody will engage and ask questions. Again, if you do have anything like AT assessments or any information along those lines or tools, please feel free to post them in the community forum. And Jeannie just put it up in the chat. And yeah, and go ahead, and I think we're ready for the survey. Should be
Thanks.
posted. So if you just take a second to,
There we go.
I see Sarah has her hand raised. Sarah?
I didn't mean to.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Well, good to hear your voice.
Yes, thank you to everyone who participated today. Thanks for the Assistive Technology Association for hosting these events. I think they're wonderful conversations for all of us to participate in, and we're looking forward to future collaborations at the local level, at the state level, that might, improve things for older adults accessing assistive technology. Any closing comments, Jeannie, from you? We've got 1 more minute.
I just loved my group and I loved discussing this. This is something that I think everyone on this call was very passionate about, or you wouldn't be here. And if you weren't, I bet you are now. It's hard not to get excited about this stuff and all the ways we can help people get it. So, yeah,
Yes.
and that's all.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you,
We'll see
everybody.
you in March. We will see you on March 11th.
Thanks, everyone.